Hello, everyone. Welcome to this morning's Academy CAFÉ. CAFÉ, Connecting Awards and Fostering Engagement. What a great acronym. I think that's brilliant. So this is a series of short and snappy discussions organized around a panel format, and it's exclusively for members of the Awardee Excellence community. My name is Vincent Fusco. I'm a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering. My area of expertise is in high frequency electronics, microwave technology, microwave communications, and I work at the Queen's University of Belfast. So I will be a chair for this morning's session, and hopefully we can have a nice discussion. The topic for today is early career recruitment, and this is a topic that is singularly important in order to create a pipeline of talent for the future. The event is being recorded, and is likely to be published on the Royal Academy of Engineering website at some point after the meeting, post the meeting. If you have any questions throughout the event, and I encourage you to ask questions, we may not be able to get to all of those questions, but please click on the chat feature, which is available at the bottom of the screen, and we will try and deal with those. We may be able to take questions verbally as well. So again, if you use the reaction facility, just raise your hand, and we'll see how that goes, time permitting. So, just by way of introduction to the topical discussion this morning, we wish to think about current challenges, specifically in recruiting PhD students, postdocs, and other early career early career individuals, and it'd be interesting to see what approaches are being used to mitigate these issues and to identify the issues, of course. This has always been a perennial problem since I was a young academic, identifying, recruiting, retaining, and giving good training and good career prospects for talented early career researchers is absolutely necessary in order for our disciplines to proceed, and getting probably more challenging because of external factors, Brexit being one perhaps, the pandemic, which we're sort of coming out of now, but had a bit of a knock-on effect, and also the competition that companies are offering in terms of incentives for researchers. So today we have a panel of speakers, and that panel consists of Professor Priti, who will give us a brief description of profile in just a moment. We have with us also then Digney, who is an ex-graduate of Queen's, and that's by coincidence, not by design, with the role of the chair today, and Simona Lazzaroni from the Royal Academy of Engineering. So could I go around each of you in that order, and could you give us a brief overview of your profile, please?
Sure. Thank you very much, Vince. And it's a pleasure to be here today. So I'm Priti Parikh. I'm a professor in infrastructure engineering and international development at University College London. I also hold a senior research chair funded by BBOX and Royal Academy of Engineering, and I'm a council member with Institution of Civil Engineers.
Thank you. Brendan?
Good morning, everyone. Really great to be here with you. I'm Brendan Digney. As said, I'm a graduate of Queen's University. I hold an MA in Electrical and Electronic Engineering, and I'm an Enterprise Fellow of the Academy. I lead a Belfast-based startup called Machine Eye Technology, where we develop computer vision-based perception systems for mobile plant and machinery in the primary sectors worldwide. We use that for safety, for autonomous control, but also for health and safety and risk management auditing activities through those businesses.
Simona?
Yeah, hello, I'm Simona, and I'm the International Mobility Officer here at the Academy. As part of the international team, I am responsible for administering the Global Talent Visa routes on behalf of the Academy. And the Global Talent Visa is an immigration category designed to support talented and promising individuals in research and innovation who wish to live and work in the UK. The Academy is amongst 6 designated competent bodies appointed by the Home Office to assess applications under this route. And each designated competent body covers a different range of disciplines. So, for example, the Royal Academy of Engineering covers the field of engineering, the British Academy covers humanities, and the Royal Society receives applications in the field of natural and medical sciences. And our team manages the review process for all engineering applications from the Home Office. And we provide dedicated support to applicants and individuals who wish to explore the route. And finally, we work in collaboration with the Home Office and the other endorsing bodies to refine the route and ensure the scheme is accessible to all eligible individuals and contributes to making the UK an attractive place for the best engineering researchers and innovators globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Simona. So we have a blend of perspectives on the topic that we will shortly engage with, and that's great. And in terms of adding richness to the conversation, so I think I'll start with you, Priti, if you don't mind, over the past 5 years, I'm just sort of arbitrarily choosing that as a time slot. We've seen in universities in particular, I guess, challenges in terms of early career recruitment of PhD students, postdocs, early career academics, and so on. What is your perspective on that in terms of identifying where the pressure points lie and potentially methodologies for alleviating some of those pressure points?
Sure, thank you for such a thoughtful question. I mean, the landscape has changed in the last 5 years. I mean, we're now in a post-COVID, post-Brexit world with a crisis, and that has kind of fueled a financial crisis. So it is increasingly difficult for us to recruit PhD students, early career researchers, especially from diverse backgrounds, especially internationally. This is kind of coupled by the fact that the overseas fees are usually at least double the fees of UK students. So we have this disparity in fees and requirements for those international candidates to come to us, but we also have fewer and limited scholarships and opportunities to support them. So on one hand, universities have a big mission for inclusion and EDI goals, but we find it very difficult in practice to achieve those because of those barriers, whether they are financial, whether they are entry requirements, whether they are the support and training required at multiple stages to kind of recruit and engage with PhDs, early career researchers and early career lecturers. And I mean, at UCL, for example, we've got a Space and Justice Initiative where we would advertise for lecturer posts, where we would say that if a person from a BAME background applies and they meet the essential criteria, they would be automatically invited for interviews. So at UCL, we're trying those initiatives to really bring in diverse workforce and talent. For Sub-Saharan Africa, we are looking at exploring a wide range of scholarships, especially at master's level, with the idea of if we can bring in students from Sub-Saharan Africa at master's level, then once we have them in the system, we can work with them closely with a view of them continuing into our PhD pool, into then becoming research fellows with us. But the financial crisis, the cut in funding for universities, and the combination of that is making it really, really tough to recruit and bring in diverse talent. And nowadays, graduates want that kind of diverse talent. The questions that graduates ask us is, what as an organization you're doing with regards to climate change, sustainability, what are your values, what are your cultures? So compared to 5 years ago, there is a stronger trust and interest on what the values and culture are of an organization. How are we looking at inclusion genuinely? So I think aligned with that, there needs to be kind of clever ways of tapping into funding streams like philanthropy, for example. I think philanthropy is going to be a pathway forward to open up funding streams to bring in diverse talent.
Thank you, Priti. A lot of complicated factors there. It's like a big Venn diagram with lots of circles on it, with the middle bit being the outcome, which are highly trained, excellent people moving forward. The EDI and aspect obviously is important, particularly I think within engineering, which has been predominantly underrepresented in certain areas. The geographic idea around Africa, I think, is very interesting. Again, probably underrepresented in certainly in UK university portfolios, and the value and culture aspect is something that we're seeing also here. For people on the call, if you have any observations on those particular points, if you could put in some comments, and I'm seeing some appearing now. So I'm seeing a query from about career days. So the question that's being asked is, are you involved in career days hosted by universities, career journey talks, highlighting current opportunities so that early career professionals are aware of what is out there? So that's a question that's been posted. Priti, could you respond to that, please?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Ruth, for your question. So absolutely, in universities, we have host a range of career days. Sometimes the career days are based on a theme. So for example, there could be one on AI and machine learning, where we would get experts from that discipline, or sometimes they would be linked to an MSc program or to a doctorate program, or there would be events which are specifically tailored to early career researchers. So in universities, we host a range of kind of career days and events, and we get academics on the board with them. We also sometimes seek expertise from industry. So a lot of times we also would get industry leaders to talk about projects, to talk about the talent that they are looking for, to join the dots between kind of skill sets and potential employment opportunities. So Ruth, that's something we do quite extensively to sensitize early career professionals, to make them aware of what information and what networks are out there. We also encourage them to participate or engage with institutions like Royal Academy of Engineering or Institution of Civil Engineers, who do a stellar job actually in organizing events for diverse groups within the engineering community and those beyond who are interested in engineering.
We're getting a question from Radan, which reflects a comment that you made earlier around the costs associated with the fees associated with international students. And the question really is, how can we go about attracting more UK students? I'm going to put you in the spotlight here, but before I do that, my own organization and others that I'm aware of are finding it difficult to attract UK students, primarily because of the attraction that industry can offer on first graduation. So again, just putting you in the firing line, Priti, again, if you don't mind for a moment.
Sure, go for it. I mean, at the moment, I'm acting head of department, so I always seem to be in the firing line, Vince. It's not a problem. So I think if I look at my department, I'll give you my department as an example. We have about 800 students. 700 of them are master's students. And if we look at the breakdown at master's level, interestingly enough, 70% of those students are international. And this is a one-year master's program. And then if we look at our PhD pool, we would have a ratio of 60% international, 40% UK students. But if we look at our undergraduate programs, 70% of students on our integrated four-year undergraduate programs, they are mostly UK home students. So somehow what is interesting, what we're finding is we are able to kind of bring in UK talent at the undergraduate level, but we seem to be losing them as we progress into kind of postgraduate PhD levels. Then once again, if you look at recruitment at research fellow and lecturer level, there seems to be a balancing out where we have more UK graduates joining us. So somehow we have this funny curve of UK and then a big surge in international in the masters, and then it balances out. And I think it'd be interesting to get Vince your insights into that, whether that aligns with patterns in your university.
So it's kind of like an investment portfolio. You want to have as much diversity in there as possible. Brendan, can I refer to you now and as someone who has decided to create an SME and do your own thing using the engineering expertise that you have developed? What's your view on the same question in respect to your ability from sitting as someone who's running an SME now in terms of connecting with people who have the expertise and talent that you think that you would need to carry forward your mission?
Yeah, there's been a lot of points Priti has raised that really resonate with what we see from the other perspective. So I suppose I bring the perspective of SME to this, but an SME where we heavily rely on our researchers and we heavily rely on having access to talent. There's a few points to it. Over that 5-year time frame, I think there has been, certainly where we are, a marked shift in perceptions of working with SMEs, working with startups, taking an enterprise pathway. And I think that in part has been through programs like our organizations like the Enterprise Hub within the Academy, more awareness, more understanding of the routes that they take. But the key thing to that in establishing enterprise is the talent. It is that subject matter expertise, and it is crucially important to be competitive that we have the people to be able to do that. So we have had a few different approaches, but generally where we try to do is we try to build relationships very early with researchers. So we don't necessarily wait until somebody is reaching the end of a research period, until somebody is seeking to move into the workforce. We actively pursue research partnerships with the academic organizations, so with a number of universities, with a number of research centers. And generally then our employment and our hiring pathway has been to continue relationships with those researchers from a very early stage. So those who are in our team have undertaken research projects, development projects within the academic institution for us, and then transitioned out to us. It's hugely important to us to have that pool of talent, but it's also hugely important to be developing that and moving through with it. The perception that enterprise is a pathway, we're seeing more and more that we can say it's a great pathway to go on, we're seeing more and more fellow researchers spin out, move out. Generally, TTOs and university investment funds are generally now offering very good terms, very good support, very good access to funds to be able to do that. We've been able to benefit from that, and I know the Academy did a report last year that outlined across the UK the various terms that were there with TTOs. So it's very important that there's a continual pathway, but it's very important that we present enterprise and that we present what we do with Machine as both a research-oriented organisation, but also a very valid and very valuable pathway.
So in regard to your comments around engagement with the prospects at an early stage and working with the relevant university department to help that happen, as I understood what you said, the projects could be conducted within the university. How does that work at a sort of practical level?
So at a practical level, generally, and we've had meetings even this week about future projects. Generally, we have a relationship with a few of the universities and a few of the academic partners that we work with. They will have various scope. So it may be a 12-week research project for an MSc, or it may be a PhD within their faculty that is late stage in a parallel or a similar research field. So generally, we have both large and small projects that we need to be undertaken, and we'll enter into an agreement with the university team, with their supervisors, around what that relationship looks like, and it's slightly different depending on the different institutions. But generally, that researcher will undertake that project, whether it's a short-term project or a longer-term project, where there is an agreement between us both that they can publish, they can benefit, they can develop from the work that they've done. But it's either a report or a development or a piece of work that's tangibly beneficial to us. We maintain that relationship. They may undertake follow-on work for us, and generally then they'll transition into our team as time progresses.
Thank you, Brendan. We have a question coming up from Fernando, which is around the level of fiscal support that PhDs get, and I guess that the one of the mediating factors here might be things like case awards, or which if there is a suitable company and the schemes are available, then we can offset and make things more attractive financially to people engaging. Priti, have you seen the lack of financial incentive as something that is a determiner for people not engaging with the academic pathway?
Absolutely. I mean, this year UKRI provided us a slight uplift on stipends for PhD students, but still, if you look at the stipends, if you look at the salaries of research fellows and benchmark them against what a graduate in industry would get, you see a significant difference, and that does act as a deterrent. Also, what acts as a deterrent is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my academic career. It provides a lot of intellectual freedom. And I think with an academic career, it is very rewarding, both financially, both intellectually, once you progress to a certain stage. But in that early stage of PhD, research fellow, lecturer, what is fundamental is that those individuals need support in publishing, they need support in funding grants. At the right point in time, they need kind of senior colleagues to stand by them to make sure that they hit those milestones to progress. And what happens in quite a lot of instances is if that talent does not get the support, then they get frustrated with the low salaries, with the low value creation, and then they head off to industry, which is not a bad thing, because there are transferable skills and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think I do feel a bit sad that with the financial barriers and with the lack of support directed support, we do lose really good talent. And also, I think one of the other challenges is the publishing cycle. Once you submit a paper, it takes about 7-8 months to publish. And sometimes with early career researchers, if they are with us on a contract for 1 or 2 years, if you do not factor in publications in year 1 at the outset, it means that they spend 2 years working on a project and then they're writing papers in their own time. They have to wait another 2 years for them to be published, and they get stuck in a black hole. So there are multiple barriers, and I think there needs to be much more done to actively support those individuals to make sure that they progress their careers with us in an effective manner.
So if I pick up on comments that both yourself and Brendan have made, then and they're around impact. So I guess that the training that we give and the projects that we set have to be impactful, and to possibly now to a larger extent, and you can challenge me on this, they probably have more of an industrial pull on them than an academic push, if I can put it that way. So again, just maybe Brendan first, then on the attractiveness or otherwise of that sort of sentiment.
Certainly, the projects we're proposing are entirely industrial orientated. We're looking at what gives us competitiveness in the market, what helps with our development. By proposing those projects, we're getting people who are firstly focusing their research on those projects. So when they come out and they join us, they are very specialist day one through the door. They're already familiar with our culture, they're already familiar with our product, our technology, and they have specialized down into very specific areas. Just for a moment, going back to the comment about stipends, we certainly see with both the supervisors and the researchers who we work with, that there is an attraction to undertaking small projects, to undertaking industry-led research with us. We are contributing to that. We are effectively providing top up for that work. That does create a very attractive environment. So from us as an enterprise, we do see that as something very important, that the financial incentive does need to be there for the work, but by partnering with enterprise and working cooperatively, it does increase that stipend. It does help that whole situation. So certainly industry focused projects and project specific what we work on, when it comes to down the line to the employment pool, it creates a different conversation, it creates a different dynamic for us, and for us as a business, our interest to increase our competitiveness in the market. We are a deep tech research oriented business. We need to be continually pushing, continually improving. The way to do that is to work with research at a very early stage.
Priti, asking you to respond to the same question, but maybe in a slightly different way. The requirement for impact and potentially a greater rating on industrial push. Have you considered this in terms of how you build your research teams, and has it had an influence on the outcome of those research teams?
Absolutely. I mean, at UCL, we're having discussions on what do we mean by impact, and impact nowadays is much broader than academic publications. So we discuss at great length impact to society, to policy making, close partnership and engagement with industries to drive innovation. And a lot of us who lead research centers are beginning to shape our projects actively with external partners. So my senior research chair with Royal Academy of Engineering is in collaboration with industry who are installing solar home systems in sub-Saharan Africa. And I have a couple of PhD students who are actively working on data, consumer data, to understand and predict energy consumption needs. Some of them subsequently have gone on to work with the industry partner post their PhD. So we've also joined the dots around what their career progression could look like. Some of them have gone off to work in civil service. Some of them have gone off to work as research fellows in the same domain. But what happens is with this type of cross-sectoral partnership, it opens up opportunities for graduates to move across sectors. Because I think sometimes we forget that through PhDs, we are creating a talent pool, but with transferable skills. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of that the transferable skills, we should be encouraging the skills to be transferred to industry or to policy, rather than trying to constrain it to industry. And I think that builds very much on what Brendan was highlighting earlier about the value of industry academia engagement.
Kind of, sorry, Brendan, carry on.
Okay, no, just to add a point in that, that is certainly a drawback that we see is the transferability of skills, or maybe the approach to skills. The skill set in industry, or the commercially focused skill set, is possibly slightly different to a research oriented skill set. That's one thing that we do see, that there is a transition period. I think it's wrong to call it a training period, but there's sometimes a difficult transition from a completely research orientated perspective, where there are very different outputs, to a commercially orientated perspective, commercial timings, commercial focus, and a need balance the two. So that's what we have seen. I won't call them drawbacks, but we have seen challenges in adapting from, or people who have been in entirely research orientated, adapting into, I suppose, our culture, our way of working as a commercially orientated organization. So to maybe bring that in, or bring that approach in at an earlier stage as a business, as industry, yeah, that's something we would love to see. But it is something that we've, and I've wrote on my notes beside here, it's something that we have seen quite often, is that there is a very cultural difference, and a very different approach to maybe how things are done from the two different perspectives.
Thank you, Brendan. We have an interesting question in the chat from Carrie. I'll read it verbatim, and we can have a bit of a discussion around that. So, one significant difficulty for RN research fellows, and indeed all ECRs that have reached the stage of being able to build a team, is visibility. Applicants tend to assume that senior staff members make the best supervisors. In my experience, what tips do you have for RN research fellows to stand out as much as possible to potential PhD students and postdocs? And I empathize entirely with your question. Who wants to grab that one? Go ahead, Priti.
I think I totally empathize. I think senior academics sometimes make the worst supervisors, if I could say so, without getting into trouble here. I mean, what is interesting is that as senior academics, we are trained in our research area, we are experts in our niche fields, but we are not trained sometimes to project manage or lead people. Leadership is something that we are not trained on. It is somehow assumed that if you become an associate professor or a professor or a head of department, you'll just get on with it. And I think there is a big problem here, because quite often people who are really good at research, not all of them make good leaders. And I see this again and again in academia, where you have really world-leading scientists who then struggle to motivate and build teams and lead others into fulfilling careers. So I think there needs to be more built into leadership at very early stages. I would say even at the PhD stage, there needs to be more built in around leadership, leading people, enabling, facilitating. There needs to be a stronger culture, I think, around enabling and giving, where it is the norm or given that early career researchers should be first authors on paper. They should be allowed to lead funding applications with the support of senior academics taking a back seat. So there needs to be kind of more kind of training, understanding around leadership, I think, to create this step change. And I see this again and again, where I see sometimes very poor leadership from really good experts in academics. And sometimes I see really excellent, outstanding leadership from academics who are doing good work, but maybe they're not world class. So it's kind of distinguishing between the two sometimes is important.
Yeah, it's like all of these points. It's a complex area. The visibility of of an early career academic within a vibrant and department can be at times difficult, and I think it's up to the more senior staff really to identify talent and encourage it, and if that means that transferring or encouraging young potential career pathways towards those early career academics, that's something a school or department should be actively engaging in as part of its research culture. I'm going to move on now a little bit to Simona, and we have this. We've been talking about the difficulty of high quality overseas students. We've been talking about what constitutes a good quality research profile and opportunity. And we have the Global Talent Visa Scheme, which you briefly introduced earlier. So and again, it relates back to the previous point, which is how can we get RANG fellows to help with this. So can you tell us a little bit more about the scheme from an operational point of view, and also from what makes a good application from your perspective, so that when folk are coming to other folk on the call and asking for help, we can give them some pointers.
Sure, thank you for the question. I would like to start by illustrating some of the attractive benefits of the Global Talent Visa compared to other types of visas, focusing on the following aspects: cost, requirements, duration, and employment. So the Global Talent Visa is a low-cost flat-rate visa, and its fee is typically half the cost of a skilled worker visa. There is no English language requirement and no minimum salary requirement that instead apply to other immigration routes. In terms of duration, applicants can choose the length of their visa up to 5 years, with the option to renew multiple times. And in addition, visa holders can apply for settlement in the UK after only 3 years if they wish to. And in terms of employment, the Global Talent Visa provides greater flexibility because it is an unsponsored immigration category. So this means that the visa holders are not tied to a specific role or a specific organization, and they can move freely between different positions, different employers. They can earn additional income from consultancy, for example, or they can enter self-employment and setting up a company. And finally, there are no restrictions on time spent abroad for research purposes, career breaks, or sabbatical leave. From the practical point of view, it's a two stages application. So the first stage is the endorsement application, which is processed by one of the endorsing bodies. And if the stage 1 is successful, then there is the stage 2, which is the actual visa application, which is processed by the Home Office. And applicants can apply under 2 different categories. One is the exceptional talent category, which is for leaders in their field. So established researchers or innovators that are recognized on an international level. The second category is exceptional promise, which is for potential leaders in their fields. And so we're looking for people in the early stage of their career that have already made an impact and can, for example, prove they have made some innovation and they have drive advances in their field of research. And there are 4 pathways to apply for endorsement under the Global Talent Visa. 3 of them are fast track, which means that applicants get a decision within 14 working days. And usually we are quicker than that, and applicants can receive a decision in a week time. And the 4th pathway is lengthier because it's a peer review process, and applicants receive a decision within 5 weeks. About the fast track pathways, the first one is the academic and research appointments route, which is for individuals who have been appointed to an academic or research position at an approved UK higher education institution or research institute, provided that their role and recruitment process meets certain requirements. The second pathway is the individual fellowship route, which is for individuals who have been awarded an eligible individual fellowship. Currently, there are 153 fellowships eligible, and they are listed on our website. And this list is constantly updated, and it's constantly growing. So we invite everyone who's interested in the route to check periodically our website pages. And this list includes, for example, the Royal Academy of Engineering Research Fellowship, the Royal Academy of Engineering Enterprise Fellowship, the LEAF Advanced Fellowship, and MSCA Individual and Postdoctoral Fellowship, and amongst many other fellowships. And the only requirement for applicants is that they hold the fellowship at the moment of the application, or they have held the fellowship within the last 5 years. And the third fast track route is the endorsed funders route, which is administered by UKRI, and is for researchers and specialists whose name or job title is specified in a successful grant application from an endorsed funder approved by UKRI. And I'm aware this is a lot of information, and it's only a general introduction to the route. And we'll be sending out an email with links to our website where everyone who's interested can find more information, details, and guidance. And you can also contact our team by email, which I'm going to add in the chat shortly. And we are a passionate and dedicated team, and we aim at supporting applicants as much as possible. Just please be aware that we are not able to provide legal advice.
So in terms, thanks, Simona, for that whirlwind tour of a broad range of opportunities that fall within this scheme. In terms of the construction of the narrative that forms the case, what are particular things would an applicant be encouraged to detail? I mean, vision's important, track record's important. Is there something that outweighs others, or are they all sort of equal?
So for the fast track route, basically, if the applicant meets the eligibility criteria, they are automatically endorsed. So if, for example, the academic appointment is eligible, that the applicant doesn't need to provide anything as evidence of it. And it's the same for the individual fellowship route, where the applicant just needs to provide the award, evidence of being awarded a fellowship. Under the peer review route is where the applicant needs to demonstrate they either are a leader in their field or have the potential to become leaders. So in that case, reviewers assess the applicant's track record. So we encourage applicants to provide evidence of the impact that they have already made in their field. So awards, funded that they have received for their research or innovation activities, patents, if that's the case, and anything that can demonstrate their achievements. Additionally, applicants must provide a letter of support from someone who is recognized as an expert in the applicant's field. So reviewers also evaluate the supporting statements. How the referee consider the applicants to be either a leader or a potential leader in the field. And also the third aspect that reviewers assess is the expected benefits of the applicant's presence in the UK. So what the applicant could achieve and could bring to the UK research and innovation excellence and community.
Thank you, Simona. I have two questions here. I'll take them in the order they've come up. Well, observations, I guess. The first one is, So it's you spend a lot of time developing a research proposal. It's visionary, and it relies on a very particular set of skills. If you're successful, you get that application, and then you go on a fishing trip, I guess. Sometimes it's very difficult to meet the skill set you want. So the consequence of that could be that you dumb down or modify the vision. The question that Martin is asking here is, I wonder if others had similar experiences. Anyone want to? Priti, do you want to? Yeah.
I can start my response. So yes, it's very difficult because when you write proposals, you want it to be visionary, you want it to be exciting, intellectually challenging. And I would say we should continue doing so, because as academics, as leaders, that's our job really, to kind of push the boundaries. What is difficult then is finding the appropriate talent, recruiting postdocs to meet that vision. And I think also what is difficult within that domain is projects have a short lifespan of 3 to 5 years. And a lot of research fellows who come in eventually are looking for permanent lecturer posts or more permanent roles. So it is a difficult balance of meeting this ambition, vision, and intellectual dream of being a world leader, and then the nitty-gritty and the day-to-day of delivering kind of milestones, delivering outcomes and outputs on projects. But I would say that it's worth going for the vision, because if you have a good vision, then you would be able to find postdocs. I know it's difficult to recruit that talent, but the more exciting the vision, the more likely it is that you will get people on board to join you. And also, I think factor in the kind of hard fact that if someone gets a permanent role, they are going to move on. So kind of acknowledge and factor in the FIRE project that will be kind of turnover, there will be change kind of hand, and how would you manage that? I remember previously I used to get quite agitated and derailed when on my projects, on my PhDs, people would leave quite naturally and move on to things, even though they were better things. But now I feel happy for them if they're moving on to better things, and I feel I've enabled them or facilitated them to take up something exciting in their own field and become independent. So I guess the way I look at it is you kind of project manage in that change and shock and stress, and acknowledge that it is going to happen in the ecosystem we have. I don't know, Martin, if that quite responds to your question, but I hope it does.
And I think in summary, I mean, always make the best proposals you can, make them stretch proposals, that's and with an element of risk involved in them. Churn in your research teams and development teams is a healthy thing, I think, as long as it's not too rapid a churn. I have a question from Rajesh. Rajesh, I don't quite understand your question, and so far we haven't had a hands up. So if you could come online, if you're still there, and maybe verbally ask your question, please.
I think I do. Understood. Is it about the settlement? Is that question?
No, it was to.
Apologies.
Sorry, Simona. It was to Rajesh. Yeah, Rajesh. Sorry, I'll come back to you in a moment, Simona.
Yeah, Simona, this question is about, so if you go through a special talent route, the settlement time is 3 years, and I think promise it is 5 years, right?
No, that has changed 3 years ago. So if an applicant gets the endorsement from one of the science bodies, so either the Royal Academy of Engineering, the Royal Society, or the British Academy, regardless of the category they are endorsed under, so regardless if it's exceptional talent or promise, it's always after 3 years that the applicant or the visa holder at the point is eligible to apply for settlement.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rajesh, and thanks, Simona, for the articulate response there. Just we've a few minutes left, but 5 or 6 minutes left. So I would like perhaps to to ask, what do you think would make the biggest difference to early career recruitment? And again, Priti, if you wouldn't mind leading off on that one, from your own word.
Sure, I think finance funding comes up a lot. So, I mean, having better paid roles, I mean, starting right from PhD to research fellows, having better pay will make a substantial difference. And I know that's an active point of discussion because the thing about academia is some of the senior roles are very well paid, but it is acknowledged and well understood that early career research fellows, early lecturers, those roles are not well paid at all. So that there are active discussions on kind of looking at elevated pay scales. And I mean, UCL's provost has made kind of a statement, wrote an article about this. So I hope that that comes to fruition because that will help to attract talent and to then retain talent for them to progress. Another thing is, as senior academics, I feel we are responsible for more actively supporting, enabling, and facilitating. I think there needs to be more the spirit of giving, where we say we have early career researchers in our department, in our center. They need to be lead authors. They need to be lead on funding applications. We have enough in our careers. So I think we need to go all guns out for those early career researchers and do much more than what is happening now. I feel really strongly that if we kind of do all those things, there will be a step change, but it requires very kind of conscious effort on our part because the way academia is set up is about all of us being kind of world leads about our brands. And I think senior academics will need to move away from that and be better team players. And I know I sound a bit critical here, but I think it needs to be said.
Okay, thank you. And I'll follow up on that point in the closing remarks. Priti, so thanks for reminding me about that final point. There's a comment here from Ruth, which is an interesting one, and I know here in my own organization and indeed in my own school that we do have this reverse mentoring, if you want to call it that, where we're almost like a teaching hospital. So the postdocs and PhD students will mentor undergraduates, and postdocs will mentor PhD students. And Brendan, were you involved in any of that sort of activity?
Absolutely, I was on the receiving end of it. And as I moved through the school, the mentor moved effectively the same distance ahead of me. So it was always a two-way relationship. It was a very valuable practice. It was a very valuable program. It tied in to the overall mentoring program. So while we were reverse mentoring with our peers, we still had our supervisors, we still had our personal tutors from the academic staff. To echo, I suppose, a few of Priti's points, but with an enterprise perspective, the need for funding is very, very important. For us in enterprise, it's just as important that we can fund and effectively fund work with researchers. Where we're based here in Northern Ireland, there is a good framework for that. There is a good funding program for those relationships. But in every jurisdiction, in every region, that's something that will be increasingly important to foster SME and academic relationships. Giving visibility of expertise, I suppose it comes back to the mention of personal brand, the mention of capabilities, the mention of promotion. In a lot of cases, the challenge that we have found is actually understanding the expertise that exists in the school, understanding the research areas, the research specialties that people have. One of the most valuable things we have done was a Meet the Researcher event, where the institution put on an event where they profiled a number of their researchers and their areas of work. It was a panel discussion like this. It wasn't maybe the longest event in the world. It was only 45 minutes to an hour, but it allowed us to then come along and say, we didn't realize there was somebody with that specific area of expertise that we are looking for. So that visibility and that promotion of what you're doing, that visibility and that promotion of the talent that exists is very important from our perspective as an SME in how do we work, who do we work with, how do we approach. And just then my final point, just in response to Martin around grant writing, nothing changes in enterprise. Being able to write grants, being able to be visionary about the content of them is almost essential to the establishment of anything early stage. So those are highly transferable skills. They're something that we look for. So I certainly wouldn't be trying to rein in, but I would certainly be trying to ensure that everybody has that ability to write visionary grants, because if there's going to be any transition enterprise at all, being able to communicate what we're working on, being able to communicate our research, being able to communicate the vision that we have is essential to future funding.
Thank you, Brendan. So we have reached the bang on time, by the way. You must be all experts at timekeeping. 11:25. We've reached the end of our Q&A session. Just sort of in summary, the sorts of things that that I observed from the conversation is that there needs to be a culture of leadership. There needs to be a good mentoring and in position in order to demonstrate best practice and learn from how that practice changes, because what was appropriate maybe 20 years ago is probably different to what's appropriate now. The definition of career pathways, rather than a whole bunch of little short episodes concatenated at different organizations as a research career, is maybe something that research organizations, particularly academic research organizations, look at. The need for a team mentality, particularly on very large grant applications and multidisciplinary applications, is something that's becoming more important, and that progression and reward need to be linked to that in an appropriate manner. So those are my observations. Priti, have you any sort of summary observations that are additional to those, perhaps?
Well, I wanted to bring up mentoring especially because I hold a senior research chair from Royal Academy of Engineering, and I know in the Royal Academy of Engineering programs, what is offered is mentoring by Royal Academy Fellows. And I would say take that up. I have found it extremely beneficial at difficult points in my career when I've had someone who's gone through this journey and said, well, don't worry about this, it will all be fine, or do this, or be brave enough to take a risk. So I would say mentoring is really important, because with a mentor, you get an independent mentor who has no other motivation, does not benefit from your career, and it's someone typically who is very willing to enable and facilitate and give. So I think something I didn't really mention today is how mentoring has been valuable for my career.
Thank you very much, Priti. Brendan, any final remarks that you would like to make?
Totally concur with mentoring. It's critical. You know, there's an old adage, never be the smartest person in the room. You know, always put somebody in the room that you're continually learning from, and that will challenge you. Somebody that will challenge you, somebody that will ask the difficult questions. They're doing it to progress you, so that's hugely important. I would just probably make the point of considering how relationships are built. I think the overarching theme that I'm trying to share is the need for relationships with SME, and doing that at an early stage. We build all our relationships from a very early stage, both with researchers and with institutions, and that tool of building that relationship, that tool of communicating what you're working on, what the project, what the research areas are, is absolutely critical. For us, obviously, our interest is in innovation, and it's how do we improve and how do we continue development, and those relationships are key to the whole thing. It's not, it's absolutely not a one-way relationship. Conversation we had this week is around what data we're providing back to a researcher who's working on a project for us. They'll have equal ownership of that data. They can publish it, they can work on that. It has to be a two-way relationship. It has to be mutually beneficial. So we'll focus on the relationships and focus on the development of those.
Thank you, Brendan. And to everyone on the call then, finally, please use your networks to push out the schemes that the appropriate schemes that the Academy can facilitate and pull others in, please. Just finally, I'd like to thank Priti, Simona, and Brendan for their time. I'd also like to thank the Academy team, Lucy and Jonathan and others who put the program together and dealt with the logistics around it, and to everyone who attended today. And I hope you felt you find at least some of it of interest and use. And as I said at the outset, this is being recorded and will be available. So if you think there are others who who would like to look at it, please let them know about it. So again, thank you very much, and I will close the presentation. I will close the meeting at this stage. Bye-bye, everyone.